Australia, often referred to as Down Under, is the smallest of Earth's 7 continents. It is located in the southern hemisphere close to South Asia and is surrounded by the Pacific, Indian and Southern Oceans. If you look at photographs from space, you'll see that most of Australia, especially the center, has an orange color to it. That's because most of Australia is desert. Its average temperature during the summer is 30 degrees Celsius and 15 degrees Celsius during the winter. The temperatures are so high compared to, for instance, Europe because first, it's closer to the equator and secondly because the air is drier. But let's move on for now and take a look at the people that live in Australia. Australia has a population of around 23.8 million people. If you look at the sheer size of Australia, around 7.7 million square kilometers, you'll realize that that's just a minuscule number. Statistically, that's just around 3 people per square kilometer, compared to, say, Germany, which has a population density of 243 people per square kilometer. That figure is tiny. But the population density is not evenly distributed across Australia. Most Australians live close to the eastern coast, where, in comparison to the rest, it's cooler and more humid. If you want to find someone in, for example, Central Australia, you'll probably have a hard time. In the entire region, the population is around 55,000. Its size is about 546,000 square kilometers, making the population density just 1/10 of a person per square kilometer. It is estimated that around 40% of the population of Central Australia is of Aboriginal origin. If you take a look at the entirety of Australia, that figure drops to only about 2.4%. Most of the population migrated from Europe, the US and Asia. That's also one reason why Australia has a Western and modern society. But why did people actually start migrating to Australia? Let's take a look at the history to find out. Australia's history starts somewhere around 40 to 70,000 years BC, when the first humans migrated from Southeast Asia to Australia and settled down, most likely during a glacial period when the sea level was around 140 meters below the current level. These migrations are presumed to be some of the earliest migrations from Africa. It is believed that early humans traveled from Central Africa to West Asia, South Asia and later on to Southeast Asia. Several thousand years passed while the Aboriginal Australian tribes populated parts of Australia. They organized themselves in hundreds of tribes, most of which had their own language and dialects. There is a rough estimate that before the British arrival there was a population between 315,000 and 1.25 million. The Aborigines developed a hunter-gatherer lifestyle and had spiritual and artistic traditions. Researchers have discovered rock paintings and engravings, some of which are dated back to 26,000 years BC. Most of these paintings are dedicated to the Aboriginal religions, which nowadays get summed up as Dreamtime. Aboriginals believe that the Dreamtime was a period of time at the very beginning of existence. Everything, the people, animals, the land, the tools, and even the dreams were created by sacred ancestors during that time. This is the reason why Aboriginal tribes don't think that they can own land, but rather be part of it. They believe that their ancestors live in a place where space and time are non-existent, that all the knowledge got accumulated over generations and that one can access the ancestors' knowledge since everything is connected. In 1606, William JANSZOON, a Dutch navigator, was the first European to discover the Australian coast when traveling from today's Jakarta over to New Guinea. Although he discovered the continent, he did not really explore the coastline. The actual size of the continent was still unknown at that point. In the late 18th century, expeditions were undertaken by British cartographer James Cook, who claimed Australia's east coast for Britain and discovered and named Botany Bay. The first British colony was set up in 1788 in New South Wales in that bay, and Sydney was founded. The reason behind the establishment of this colony were the overcrowded prisons in Britain. In Britain, life was hard. Many people were poor, crime rates were high, and punishments were strict. To help the situation, Britain decided to set up penal colonies to relieve British prisons. Though first there was peace between Aborigines and the settlers, this quickly changed when settlers occupied large amounts of land that they used for agriculture. These lands were previously used by Aborigines to hunt and gather food. In 1795, the situation escalated into 2 wars between the British and the Aboriginal tribes. The conflicts lasted until 1816. The Aboriginal tribes could not stand a chance against the British Army, which was superior because of its weapons and military experience. The Brits also, unwittingly, used a lethal bioweapon, similarly to the one used in America. We're talking about a disease, smallpox to be specific, which killed a vast percentage of Aborigines. You see, Europeans had developed resistance against the smallpox because they were in contact with it before, while the Aborigines never had such a disease, which means that their bodies never got resistant to it. Then, a few decades later, in 1851, a large number of people migrated to Australia when gold was discovered. This was the first big wave of immigration after British colonization. There were other waves of immigration, such as the one after the Second World War. People from countries like Germany, Great Britain, or Scandinavia came after the war to flee from the destroyed countries to start a new life. But before the Second World War started, another event happened that shaped Australian history. In the 20th century, from around 1910 to 1970, children of mixed-race parents were violently taken away by the government, without any legal process and often at random. We're talking about the stolen generation. An act, signed in 1909, the Aborigines Protection Act, was active for 60 years and allowed the government to steal mixed-race children from the Aborigines and hold onto them until the age of 18. The reasons behind the act's passing included the belief that the Aborigines were dying out since there was a drastic decrease of the Aboriginal population after the first contact, as well as the idea that mixed-race children could be trained to work and be integrated into European Australian society. The stolen children were raised in special camps set up by the government. In these camps they lived under horrific conditions. Any attempt to flee led to hard punishments. Some children were taken into care to protect them from abuse, but this wasn't effective at all. A study conducted with around 500 former stolen children reported that 17% of female and around 8% of male children were sexually abused while being at work or with the ones that were supposed to care for them. Another study found out that removed children had practically no improvement in social position compared to the children who remained with their parents, making the whole program pointless in the first place. Since 1998, the 26th of May is known as the National Sorry Day, a day when people across Australia remember the mistreatment of the stolen generation. As we can see, Australia has an impressive history going back thousands of years before times of colonization. Once only occupied by Aborigines who had a traditional and religious way of life, it is now a modern country with a truly multi-ethnic population. Since the difficult period after colonization, Australia has grown and changed drastically. It now represents a large and growing economy, which is competitive at a global level. Furthermore though, Australia also has its own culture of diversity and inclusiveness. After centuries of division, this has not always been an easy road to take.